Winged Nation presents, presented by Drydene DRF Racing Oils.
I love inspiring stories, and TJ Stutts, the racer from up in central Pennsylvania, is one of the most inspiring that we have. Back in 2018, a bad crash, suffered some pretty significant injuries. During that injury and the problems of the medical diagnosis, they discovered cancer. So he was battling a couple of things, but TJ battled, and he brought it back to the racetrack, and even later this year, brought it back to victory lane. Now, our girl from Pennsylvania, Ashley Stremme, she caught up with TJ Stutts up at Port Royal as part of the Weikert Memorial Weekend. Nobody knows the story of TJ better than Ashley, and she had the chance to chat with him. With thousands of laps logged, Drydene's DRF racing oils were built and proven on the track, and now they're ready for your race engine. DRF is engineered exclusively for high horsepower racing engines that require maximum performance against the toughest competition. And DRF racing and break-in oils are built with competition-grade ZDDP to protect critical engine components while boasting improved torque and horsepower and superior temperature reduction. To get DRF in your engine, go to drfracing.com or call 1-877-DRYDENE. Here's Ashley and TJ Stutts.
Hey guys, I'm Ashley Stremme, and I'm sitting down with the driver, the number 11, TJ Stutts. TJ, thanks for joining me today.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. So let's dive right into it. Everyone kind of wants to know what's going on with you, what you've been doing. It's good to see you back in a race car, but the end of last season was kind of an interesting situation, to say the least. Ended up in an accident that kind of brought some things to the forefront for you, and it may be a little bit different perspective. If you can walk us through the crash, and we'll go from there.
Well, so we have the crash. I almost have the ambulance crew talked out that I'm fine. It's just some back pain. It'll go away. So they finally get me to the hospital, and Steph says, I called my wife, and she's like, well, where are you? I'm like, well, I'm strapped to the backboard, but I think I'm okay. So they take me to the hospital, and it's a broken back, and I had some heart issues and had my sternum a little bit. Wasn't broken, but it had some hairline fractures in it. So we're going through all that, and they had done a CAT scan in trauma, did all of the normal, I would assume, trauma stuff. Did all that. I told my family, I said, hey, Dad's got a broken back here. We can do some like normal family stuff. I was thinking like go to the beach. So 4 weeks after my crash, kids want to go to Eldora for the King's Row. We had never been to Eldora. We're in Pennsylvania. We race 80 times a year, so we don't get to travel too much. So ride out there, but the day before I left, I had another CAT scan, which was actually supposed to be scheduled for 3 months after the crash. Whoever put it in the computer put it in wrong. So we just got a phone call, hey, you're supposed to go, so we did our appointment. So we go, and we come back, and the first thing that happened was that we knew that there was any kind of other issue. My lymph nodes and my white blood cells were through the roof in the hospital in trauma. And the doctors thought most of that was trauma related because those two numbers elevate. The lymph nodes not so much as the white blood. So that's where we were with that. And somehow the cancer rumor got like instantly started because my wife was driving Sunday to pick me up from the hospital and was already getting phone calls. So somebody had to be in the hospital that knew and saw the blood count. So that's how the rumor mill really got started. We didn't think there was anything wrong. So back to the Eldora trip. So we go to Eldora, we come back Monday, and we have to go see my regular doctor, and he says, hey, they found a spot on your pancreas that was not there in the first scan. So he says, I know what I think it is. He says, why don't we send you to a GI guy? So two GI guys later, now this is over up the next, 2 months, let's say, another 6 weeks. And they say, hey, it's just a bruise. Wow. They're thinking it's trauma related. Hey, it wasn't there in the first scan. It's there in the second scan. And my understanding, I'm not a doctor, I'm metal, that's what I do for a living, but they tell me that the trauma scan, when they put the dye in you, they only have X amount of time to be able to see that area of the pancreas because it flushes through so fast. So what happened was they just missed it. It flushed through, they were scanning my back, they weren't worried about, you know what I mean, I was 38 years old, they think I'm in good health. There's no reason for them to go more in depth. The second scan was a lot less pressure, so that's how they caught it during that one. So 2 GI guys later, and finally, we had actually just were getting ready to go back to racing, and Hopkins, we got into Hopkins, and the guy says, oh, they had done a biopsy, and they knew that, hey, it wasn't a bruise. But a long story short, there was some stuff that happened at Hershey. We end up at Hopkins, and that's when we really knew what the resolve was. But it was still another 2 months until we even had a course of action, because it's a very rare type of pancreatic cancer. Like, I got lucky, it's a slow growing, it's a neuroendocrine tumor. It's not normal pancreatic stuff. There's no chemo, there's no radiation, there's no anything that's gonna fix it other than getting it chopped out. And we were on the borderline that they kind of wanted to let it in because it's so slow growing. But the problem is we were 1.78 centimeters. Well, that's close enough to 2, and 2 is when they want to cut it out. So my big concern was that we were gonna want to cut it out in the middle of June, which was not an option. So we had already lost a half racing season, but that was some of the reason we came back to racing as quick as we did last year. We knew there was problems. We didn't really know, was this going to be the end of it? I actually got released at 5 o'clock on Friday night, or about 3:30 on a Friday, and the doctor says, when do you plan on going back to racing? I said, well, in about 2.5 hours. And it rained out the first night, but then we did come here and we ran Labor Day weekend, which anybody that is Port Royal area, we know Juniata County Fair, it doesn't get any better than that.
Absolutely.
So, but Lance and I have always been pretty tight. And I mean, he went off the deep end on me. He's like, listen, you don't race for a living, blah, blah. What are you doing coming back to racing? Well, then I had to tell him the rest of the story. And we weren't really trying to hide anything. We just didn't know for so long. I mean, we went from my crash until we actually had a diagnosis. It was almost 5 months of what it officially was and what their course of action was going to be.
So after the crash, you healed your body, no issues there wasn't a concussion, you didn't have to worry about any of that stuff at that point?
Well, there was a concussion and the normal stuff, but I guess I was too much of an 80s kid. It just...
You're a racer.
Yeah, it fixes itself, you know what I mean? Not that is a wholehearted light thing, but
right.
Anybody that knows Jason Cover, he runs late models, so he was actually in my hospital room. They came in to do a heart ultrasound, which he thought was classy. He's like, hey, can I go along? I want to see if he really has a heart. So that was a good laugh, but I had some really good people around me. I mean, anybody that goes through any of that, all I can tell anybody is the surgery, whatever happens to you during that, like the broken back was nothing. I don't want to say nothing, but
compared to what you were dealing with,
yeah,
was
I mean,
absolutely.
I got out of the hospital on a Monday. The owner of the company I work for, Eschenauer's, a big job meeting that Wednesday. He took me, laid me across the back seat of the excursion, took me to the job meeting, just because that's the type of person I am. I come from people that just because you're hurt doesn't mean that you skip out on life.
Right.
I don't know, and it was some of the thing, like with this whole cancer thing, we don't want to cry about it. We just want to fix it and move on and be able to have the life that we hopefully can continue to have.
Absolutely. So you talked about Johns Hopkins and getting in there. What was the process with that like? So basically you just went in for a surgery one day and then next day, 2 days, you were in outpatient type deal? Or?
Well, getting into Hopkins, that was all my wife. She did all of that. And she's continuing to do it with the insurance, and now it's out of state, and I mean it's in network, but it's a lot of BS on her end. So thank God that she takes care of that for me. But so I go in for surgery. Well, we find out what it is, so we go to PRI Thursday. So we go actually Wednesday, Thursday. We come home Friday night, so I can hunt the last day of rifle season. So I hunt the last day of rifle season. I just wanted to sit in a tree. So I sat all day, and then that Monday I went in for surgery. So you go down through Baltimore early in the morning, no big deal, went in. I'd never had big surgery. I've not I try to avoid the doctors and the hospitals as much as possible. But so I wake up. Let's step back before we do the wake up. So Crystal Nates, who Jim was one of our real good friends, so she knows what's going on. Like the first night back at the Grove, we set quick time. So I have to face her on the front stretch and try not to bawl my eyes out and be emotional with her. So I wake up in the hospital, there's a 26 above my head.
Really? That's awesome.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I actually got to tell you, I was like looking around, I'm like, well, I really hope I'm in a good place and Jim isn't sitting beside me. But I mean, anybody that knows history knows him and that Camel Express car, they were, for an era, were pretty unbelievable.
Absolutely. So from there, the surgery, then the outpatient.
Well, so I'm supposed to be in for 7 to 10 days. Mm-hmm. Well, we did good enough. They let me act, and actually, I called Steph. They let me out in 3 days. And she called me, and she wanted to talk to the doctors because she was convinced that I had talked them out of me being in the hospital. If that sounds dumb. So
no, not from you at all.
No. So they bring me home, and it's Christmas time. So it was December 10th. We got operated on. So the kids want to go Christmas shopping. So we did some. That was my first outings, mm-hmm. and an hour or two of walking around was about it. So Eschenauer's owns a company called High Tech Metals, and they do a lot of stuff for me. And Wally, who is the Eschenauer and son, he runs 305s. I called him and I said, listen, I need something to do. I know I can't work,
right.
But I said, I need something to do. I said, how about I make wing treaties, W links for both of us? He says, well, I'll tell you what, give me the cut links. So he cut me all the material, had brought me all the material. So the day after Christmas, I got the great idea, I'm gonna go back to the race car show, because that's my homage. It's my version of golf, going out there working on race cars. 1 hour, standing at the mill, notching a piece of 3/4 tubing, 375 thousandths. I was done. I was wore out. And I'd go in and I'd sleep for 12 hours. So I went out the next day and I did that and I did that, and every day I started getting a little better. And finally, about 4.5 weeks in, my work truck needed inspected. So and they said, hey, you can start driving, you can start doing normal stuff. So I took it down there. I walked into my desk and there's a pile of stuff that needs done. So I went back to work. They wanted me off for 12 weeks. I was back at 5 weeks. They weren't, just because that's who I am. Should I have been back to work? Probably not, but laying in that house and doing nothing all winter, that's not who I am. So, or the people I grew up with, that's not who they taught us to be, so.
And then 3 months later, you're back climbing in a race car.
Yeah, we actually, the week after opening day at the Grove, I had a CAT scan that Thursday where they gave me, hey, the clear for 6 months, they don't see anything. Mm-hmm. So now I get a free CAT scan every 6 months for the next 5 years. So I don't know if that's really
I doubt it's free.
I doubt it's free, but yeah, at least it's on the schedule. So that is the ongoing plan. But like we went to opening day and I had only been allowed to even get on a treadmill for a couple hours a day, or for 20 minutes at a clip at a walk. And then I don't know if the doctors really would have agreed with the whole racing thing. And
ask for forgiveness instead of permission.
Yeah, we'll go with that. So,
how was it for you getting back in the car the first time?
Well, we should have won opening day if I wouldn't have fallen out of the seat. Mm-hmm. So that I struggle with not being able to be 100% right away. And I keep telling everybody, oh yeah, I'm fine. Well, every night though we race, I feel like we get a little bit more clear. Everything slows down a little bit more. Everything gets back to where it's supposed to be feel-wise. And then we've had a lot of other struggles outside of that, but just as far as me physically, I don't think the physical part, but whatever happens when they put you in for surgery and the anesthesia or just laying around that long, it almost feels like you got to get your brain back up to the speed. Like I crawled in Colby Warmer's 360 for that ASCS show, and it was like sliding an old pair of shoes on a car I'd never fit in because they just the 360s are so much fun, and then you get to the 410 stuff, and they're not really fun. They're just so rewarding. That's the difference. But
So we're sitting here the end of May. Where would you say you are percentage-wise at being back to 100% then?
I would say we're probably 80.
Okay.
But I'd have told you we were probably about 40 the first week. I guess I didn't realize, the more we raced, I didn't realize how far off I really was. Just as far, and now it's down to, like, I physically don't get tired anymore, but just starting to make good decisions. I almost feel like we're starting over a lot more. Like, I came back from my broken back, and we were right back to speed. And now it's taken a couple, I mean, it didn't help it rained for a month.
Right.
Which maybe it helped, maybe it didn't help. But the Grove went 5 weeks without racing. So the only way to really, I think, get back to this is to do it 2 nights a week and go to it.
And like you said, it is a hobby for you. It's not your job. You have a full-time job, obviously, a family at home. Did any of that play into you climbing back into a race car after everything that you had been through?
My family knows who we are. I mean, without my kids, I couldn't race. I work 4 days a week out of town. Everybody knows that. Those kids do 80% of the work, and they know the deal. I mean, wintertime, they play their basketball, they do their baseball in the springtime. Ethan's at baseball or basketball right now for travel. Thankfully that'll be over soon, but just without their support and being able to do that, I couldn't have done it. I couldn't do this on a weekly basis. I couldn't run 80 times a year and work out of town 4 days a week if it wouldn't be for those two and everybody else in my life that comes and supports it and does what we have to be able to come here every week.
Absolutely. Well, you know, we always say that the racing world is a large family. How was it when you finally kind of told everybody what was going on and where you stood? Obviously, you have your family support. We all know that. But what was it like with the racing community?
When we say family, that's not just, I guess we take it for granted. We have our feuds, we have our fights. Everything in this world is supposed to happen for a reason. Some of the things that happened in the last year proved to me it doesn't have to just be one way or the other. We got very fortunate on this end of it. That crash, let's face it, if I wouldn't have been racing, like I said, it's a neuroendocrine tumor, so nobody really they don't have enough information on it. They can't tell you, hey, at 5 years it's going to grow to 4 centimeters, or they just don't have the correct information. So it doesn't matter though, when it gets too big, there is no coming back from it. So I guess on my half, that makes that a lot harder with not knowing, hey, if we wouldn't have crashed, would it have been 2 years? Would it have been 5 years? Would it have been 15 years? Could I live the rest of my life? The doctors don't have the information, which makes it very, very difficult.
That accident was obviously a blessing in disguise then, for sure, on many parts. But so let's fast forward. We're in May. We're in racing season here. Like you said, we haven't had a whole lot of races because of the rainouts, unfortunately, but not probably the year that you're hoping for on track-wise.
We were all right at the Grove until last week. Last weekend we looked like we never drove a sprint car before, but we made some changes. There was some, like I said, there's been a lot going on with my whole deal that has just, and it's all cancer related. I mean, the guy that was with me forever, or not forever, in the last 2 years, his brother just passed away of cancer, and he decided to step back from racing because of that. He said he was at his family's deal for his brother, and he was looking at all the pictures, and he said, hey, I'm not in any of these pictures, because he missed it because of racing. Mm-hmm. It's a lot different in our situations because all of my family pictures are at the races. I was 3 months old and I was at the first race. I mean, Reese, the first trip we took to Knoxville, he was 5 weeks old, and we took him to Knoxville. So just a little bit different family situation. So I think that was some of our on-track performance, was there's so many other distractions, and then the not racing things, then I didn't get healthy. I mean, the last two nights I felt as good as I have in a long time. And hopefully we're working in a new direction and go from there.
Well, like you said, there's so much going on. And how much did being able to climb back in that race car each and every week these last few months kind of ease the pain and take some things off your mind?
Well, the disconnect when you are able to get in, you don't think about anything else. You don't have time to. You're there only to work on the race car or in the driving thing. When I say disconnect, it's so much about what's going on around you, and that's what I meant by I couldn't get it to slow down. When you're just hanging on and you can't get the rest of the thing slowed down and you can envision what is going to happen before it happens, it doesn't work. And we're starting to get that back. So that disconnect and being able to let all of our stuff from life at home, actually I can tell you the most therapeutic was as soon as I get back to the shop and not sitting in a freaking recliner anymore. I'm not a big fan of the recliner. So, and do you know Netflix? There's not really that much on Netflix. So after about 3 days of Netflix, it's like, well, this is over. I've watched it all. Anything that interested me is about over. So being able to get back to it is just very rewarding just in and of itself. Now, you know our personalities. We're not satisfied with just crawling back in it. That's not good enough. I was so mad that I lost opening day because our car was good enough to win and I just didn't do my job. And then...
Well, you did, to the extent that you were able to at the time.
Right.
Don't be so hard on yourself.
But I didn't realize at that point how bad it really was. That, I mean, we're now in May and I'm just starting to feel like we're starting to get back to normal. And starting to... you just lose so many senses, I guess, from all of that. I've never had that, so I don't know if that's a typical thing. I've talked to some of our friends who have had major surgeries, and they race different series. It's not just sprint cars, and that was one of their biggest complaints. They said it took them so long in traffic or with people around them to get comfortable and get things slowed down, and to be able to engage in the things that you need to. As Hodden used to say, you have to be able to, the rules of engagement, you know what they are, but being able to capitalize on them when you need to is what you have to do, and it's all mental.
It is. But, you know, it's incredible what you've been through, and the fact that, like you said, you're here and you're still able to even race a sprint car at this point is truly phenomenal.
Do you know what's crazy to me? Like, when we went and you go to the doctors and they say, do you have any symptoms? No, I don't have any symptoms. You know what I mean? So I woke up from surgery and I started to get like this big gut on me, and it was hard all the time. I thought I was just getting fat. I woke up in the hospital and I'm like looking down, I'm like, it's gone. It was all fluid. It was all fluid from that tumor that was growing, and we didn't know it. And there was other things like eating habits and sugar cravings and stuff that I didn't understand what was really going on. I just thought I was getting old. And pretty incredible what happens when all that goes away. And I told Pee-wee Zimitis the other night, I said, look, my suits even have a little extra room in them now. Because she was busted on me when I come back to race. And I said, hey, I couldn't get my suit zipped up. She goes, yeah, it's starting to look a little bad. So I'm just thankful to be back at it, and thankful that everybody has not totally given up faith in me, because it's been a bad last month or so here on the racing front. But in the last 2 nights we showed some speed, and we're starting to get back to where we need to be. Awesome.
Well, it beats the alternative, of course. Unfortunately, that accident happened, but I'm
still mad about the Grove Championship.
Spoken like a true racer.
Well, they don't just come to be. You got to do so many right things, and I mean.
But like you said, everything happens for a reason.
So we'll move on and
That's right.
keep working at it, and hopefully the next year or so here we'll get back to where we need to be, and I think we're already headed there. So
awesome. Well, TJ, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know it wasn't an easy road the last few months, but I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. And it wasn't. A lot of people were thinking that we were trying to be shady or not have the story. We didn't have the correct story for so long. So, I think we're pretty humble and stuff like that. We try not to just advertise everything in our lives, especially when we don't have all the information. So,
absolutely.
Appreciate everybody bearing with us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Boy, that is amazing. The way TJ is, the way he is with his sons, inspiring, and certainly a great story and a great role model for all of us. We appreciate TJ and Ashley spending some time with us here on Wing Nation Presents presented by Drydene DRF Racing Oils. With thousands of laps logged, Drydene's DRF Racing Oils were built and proven on the track, and now they're ready for your race engine. DRF is engineered exclusively for high horsepower racing engines that require maximum performance against the toughest competition. And DRF racing and break-in oils are built with competition-grade ZDDP to protect critical engine components while boasting improved torque and horsepower and superior temperature reduction. To get DRF in your engine, go to drfracing.com or call 1-877-DRYDENE.
Winged Nation presents, presented by Drydene DRF Racing Oils.